Well, good morning, everybody. Or I should say, good day, everybody. I'm Steve Beining. I'm the chair of the Distance Learning Department, and I am here presenting a session today called Communicating Faculty Expectations for Student Performance, using Moodle's checklist, marking guide, and rubrics. Moodle provides 3 useful tools for grading and assessing student performance. I will demonstrate these tools for 30 minutes, answer questions, and then participants will apply these strategies into their own courses during guided workshop time. We are videotaping the session today, so we will be periodically stopping, taking screenshots of the actions up on the screen, and pausing the video for the session today. So today we're going to look at 3 Moodle tools: the checklist, the marking guide, and the rubrics. And I'm going to first demonstrate, show you what they look like, and then I'm going to demonstrate how to create a checklist and a marking guide and a rubric. And then we're going to create one within an assignment, within a course, and then we'll go ahead and work in our own courses. Did you all have courses that you want to add your checklists and rubrics to today? So you have something in mind that you want to work on? Maybe.
At least
okay.
try.
At least try, okay. All right, so I have a course here. It's BT 101 that I've adjusted specifically for our purposes today. So this was a course that I've taught in the past. So it's been prototyped with students, and all the assignments have been tested, and the criteria determined by actual teaching of the course. And then I worked those into the checklist, marking guides, and rubrics that I'm using today for the demonstration. So I want to talk a bit about the process of why you want to communicate your expectations to students. So why is it important to communicate what your expectations are to students? What do you think?
So they know what to do and what they want to get out of the class.
So they know what to do and what they will get out of the class. I'd say that's exactly right. If you ever have students who are unsure of what they need to do in order to be successful in your class, you should consider using the tools in order to better communicate that to students. The tools themselves are built into Moodle, so when you create an assignment, you also put in all of the criteria for the performance levels right in the assignment, so as they open up the assignment, they can see what you're expecting, and they will be able to review that as they do their work. So we've talked about the assessment loop in other sessions, and so the assessment loop is part of why we want to communicate our expectations to students. So we're really focusing on step number 4 of this 6-step process of the assessment loop. So we have student learning outcomes within our courses, and we need to make sure that students are learning those outcomes. And so we in order to determine what they are in our performance levels, we work from our student learning outcomes that are in our course outlines. Now, that part would be part of step 1, the creating of the behavioral SLO. That's already provided to you in your course outline. Then you have add measurable components to the student learning outcome. This is the selection of your assessment method. So, for example, in an English class, you might select a writing tool in order to have students demonstrate their ability to write. Martha, you teach philosophy, so you probably use writing as well quite often, but do you use any other assessment tools?
Depends on the class, but yeah, sometimes. What else do we use? Some classes have quizzes. Some classes have short responses to items from so it's not like writing a paper, it's writing something short. Occasionally they have to do something like create a poster.
Okay. Great. So the writing assignments and the poster assignments can have a set of criteria that students are trying to meet when they set out on doing those assignments. So that is determined here when you add your measurable components to the SLO. What method are you going to use, and what level of performance are you expecting? And then you would align and integrate your instruction and assessment. This is creating a course skeleton or doing your lesson planning. So you're doing a series of activities that lead up to that assessable activity. And then when the students are actually ready to work on that activity, they're looking at how you communicate your student learning outcomes and your instructional design lesson plans via the syllabus and ancillary course documents. So they're looking at the checklists and the marking guide and the rubrics in order to determine what they need to do to make sure they get a good grade. So we're really focusing here on step 4. Then once you've assessed student work at step 5, you can then organize and look at the results. And if you determine that maybe there's some weaknesses in the instruction or in the sequence of the coursework, you might want to adjust that later on, thus closing the assessment loop. So communicating your expectations is an important, I'd say, essential part of the assessment loop. So we're going to work on that today, and I'm going to demonstrate or first show you some examples of the 3 tools, and then we'll talk about how to create them, and then I'll have you guys go on and work on that. And let's go on and look at the checklist. So I have created a checklist that goes with an assignment that which is just an email to me as their instructor. So the very first day of the class, they are sending me an email so that I know they can communicate with me and know how to reach me. And so I've created a simple set of elements that I'm expecting in that email. I'm looking at they've created a subject line is correct. And if it is, they get 10 points. The full name is included. Sent from college email. A descriptive word is present. An explanation is given. Explanation is detailed. And when I actually go in to grade this, it creates just a checklist that I can go on and click. Yes, student has done this, yes or no. And it adds up, Moodle tallies up the points and moves that tally into the grade book. So students, it's very clear what students need to do in order to succeed in this assignment. They have to make sure all these components are there, and it's very clear as to what they... There's also a set of options that I can set as the grader as to how this information is displayed to the student. So this first one is allow users to preview the checklist used in the module. Otherwise, the checklist will only become visible after grading. So if you wanted to keep the checklist hidden from student view, you could do that. I don't really know why you would want to. Generally, you want to communicate your expectations to students clearly, but there may be a reason why you'd want to hide that from students. So if you want to, you uncheck that. Display points for each item during evaluation. Display points for each item to those being graded. Allow grader to add text remarks for each checklist item. That adds a little comments box next to each thing. So if they haven't done something quite right, I can go in and add a comment about it. And allow grader to add text remarks for each checklist group. So these are different groups. So you can have comments that work on the whole group of checklist items, and then show all remarks to those being graded, so students can see all of my remarks. So it's very flexible in the way it allows you to set up your checklist. So let's go on and take a look at the marking guide. So in this assignment, students are writing a journal entry to me where they're sharing the results of self-evaluations that they've done in the course. And I've created a checklist that goes along with this assignment. And the checklist looks like this. It describes the different requirements in a group, and there's a description of each of the different descriptions. And then it also shows the maximum marks for each area. So in this particular assignment, I want students to be using correct grammar, spelling, punctuation, and formatting, and that is worth 10 points. Reflection of self-evaluation process is provided. So the essay shows that you have reflected upon what you've learned via the self-evaluations, can think about your thinking, and 3, can accurately and honestly evaluate your strengths and weaknesses. So that's a large part of the grade. That's 60 points. And then description for students is under the results are shared. The essay shares the results of your self-evaluations related to online learning. In particular, 1, your technical abilities, 2, your learning style, and 3, time management skills. And that's worth up to 30 points. And again, you have your options for displaying that to students. And let's look finally then at the rubric. So the next, in week 8 of this course, the students are doing another writing assignment. And I've created a rubric that describes the what the students need to do. And this is what the rubric looks like from the student viewpoint. So there is, again, it's very similar to that first marking guide where I'm looking at college level writing. That is grammar, spelling, and punctuation. I'm looking at the length of the work, the formatting, and the proofreading. I'm looking at the content of the 2 sections of the paper. So they're doing, I'm looking for level of reflection, contains appropriate examples, describes areas of strength and weaknesses, and strategies are described. And then there's a variety of levels of work that the student is completing. And then I'm looking also at content for section 2, and again, a similar set of levels of work. Now you notice that within the rubric, these points are set at the relative value of the points. And then you have, again, a list of options for displaying or not displaying various aspects of the rubric to students.
And Steve, are the items on the left-hand column tied directly to student learning outcomes?
They would be. So, well, it depends on how you're structuring your assignment. But if you're going to take an outcome, let's say the students can produce a piece of self-evaluative writing, then that would be the indicators of quality of that work. And then I'm measuring it by these different categories.
So not all of the items in the left-hand column have to be directly tied to your student learning outcomes, but at least one.
Yeah, I mean, they don't have to be. I mean, you're telling. I mean, I would want to use this as a tool where I was actually using that to show that students are meeting the outcomes of my course. So I would probably tie all these directly to an outcome, but you don't have to. And
Well, I was thinking particularly like, I don't have a student learning outcome of students have to learn how to write grammatically and format papers, but that is going to be part of their assessment. It's a smaller part than some other things, but it doesn't matter what they're writing. They need to be able to write grammatical complete sentences and document sources.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right.
yeah, and so in that case, I don't think there is an outcome in this course about grammatical writing, but that is part of because at college level writing is the expectation within the course. Yeah.
Yeah, it's sort of an implied but not explicit outcome.
Right. Okay. So that's what they look like. And I'm going to show you what it looks like when I'm going to show you how to create one. And then we're going to go in and look at what students actually see when they submit work. And then we're going to talk about some of the strengths and weaknesses of the different models that you can use. There's also some, the rubric is a bit unusual in the way it calculates the scores that have been, it's unusual in the way that it's structured. So people have not found the rubric to be a fabulous tool. Instead, I think they focus more on the marking guide because it allows much more granularity in the scores that you can assign. But when we get to that part, you'll see what I mean by that idiosyncratic structure of the rubric. Okay, so in order to create any of these tools, you use what's called advanced grading in Moodle. So I'm going to go into a practice assignment. So every time you create an assignment, you're determining what you're going to do for your grading method. And this is changeable after the fact, after you establish the assignment. So you go into creating your assignment, you go into Edit Settings. And initially, by default, under the grade section, you have the value of the assignment and the grading method. Now, simple direct grading is a method where you assign points, but there's no criteria or performance levels given as part of the assignment. And Moodle by default sets new assignments to simple direct grading.
So if you were just giving an online quiz where they would be really clear on what you were checking, that might be all you needed.
Right. Quizzes do not allow you to use checklists
Okay.
or any of these assessment tools. So quizzes are don't allow this advanced grading methodology. Only assignments can be can you assign these tools to. Okay. So so in order to assign one, you select the grading method. You have checklist, marking guide, and rubric. And let's start with checklist. You give it the value of the points, and then you save that. And then when you go back in to the assignment to edit it, you get the option to set up your criteria for your advanced grading. So that is done here in the advanced grading setting. You click on that and it opens up this form for building your checklists, marking guides, and rubrics. And you begin by either defining a new form from scratch or from one that's already created in your course. So if you are going to use a similar set of performance levels for a series of assignments, you can just create it once and then reuse that with making adjustments for each one, so you don't have to create it anew each time. But we're going to just define a new one from scratch. And here you begin by naming the criteria by which you're going to be assessing. So the name would be a general description of this. So this could be required elements of this assignment. A description. This could be how this will be applied. So you could say something like, I will grade your assignment based on the criteria listed below. And then you go ahead and you create your assignments. Now you have these tools for creating groups of criteria and then items that would belong to that group. And then you have the ability to add new items and create new groups. So you can build a checklist as elaborate as you want based on this structures. So you get groups and then items within the group, and you can create as many of any of these items as you wish. And you, in order to edit them, you simply click on where it says click to edit. So we start with a group, and it opens up a editing box. And so here you might have it, you might want to assess, do you have an example of one that we might use? I mean, I've done writing mechanics, right, or something like that. So let's look at, let's do college level writing. And then what would be an example of an item you'd look for in college level writing?
Complete grammatical sentences.
Okay, complete grammatical sentences. Oops. And how many points would we give? Let's say we're going to, let's say this is a 100-point assignment, and we're just looking for college level writing as the assessment. How many points might we want to give? 20 points? Okay. All right, and then what else might we look for?
Organized and coherent. Organization and coherence.
Okay. And let's say that's worth 40 points. And what might be a third item we would look?
Correct use of vocabulary.
Okay. And let's say that
Okay,
is
yeah.
40 points.
Sometimes that's the biggest thing you're looking for is do you understand?
Okay. If you wanted to add additional items, we could click here, and that would add a space for a new item. If you want to get rid of one, simply click the red X. If you want to add a new group of criteria, works very similarly, we'll delete that. Now, again, this is where you would set your options for students. Generally, you're going to use the ones that are here by default, but you can certainly turn them on or off based on what you want how you want your students to interact with this set of performance levels. And then you save the checklist and you make it ready. When you make it ready, the assignment, the checklist then is made available for your students when they open up this assignment. If you want to make additional changes, you would edit it. You could delete it and try a different method if you want to by clicking on the pull down here, changing it to a marking guide or a rubric or back to simple direct grading. And you can also publish the form as a new template. I believe if you do that, that moves it into an area where you can then grab that form for other assignments. Okay. All right, so that's how you would create the checklist. Let's say we wanted to instead create a marking guide. Change it to marking guide. It then allows you to start from scratch or create a new template or create a new grading form from a template. So we're going to create from scratch. And the marking guide has it's based on similar ideas, but it provides a slightly different structure for creating the performance levels. So let's call this college level writing. Notice that it deleted the old criteria, and you have to start fresh. So you generally want to think through how you want to assess your work so that you're not having to recreate your rubrics or marking guides each time if you want to change them. Tell students I will assess your work on these criteria. And it works very similarly, the interface works very similarly to the checklist. You go ahead and you create your group of guides, and then you add your criteria. So, using some of the same ideas from the last description. Now, the marking guide tends to group elements together and allow you to assign a group of points for all of the grouped together elements. So in this case, it breaks it up into a description for students. In this case, we might want to include all of the elements that we had in our checklist in one description for students, and then assign a value for that, up to a maximum value. So in this case, we might want to say grammar, correct use of terms, vocabulary and terms, and organization and coherence. Description for markers. This would be for what you would see as when you're grading the students' work. So the students see the description for the students. You see the description for markers. Can you think of an example where you'd want a different description in there for the marker as opposed to the student?
I might want to expand, see if I was doing correct use of vocabulary and terms, I might put a note to myself that says, look for use of philosophical theory, or let's say ethical theories.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So
Just to remind myself what in particular I'm focusing on.
And then you might say for organization, you're looking for from simple to complex, let's say. Based on instruction that you've given in the class. And then you give the maximum value for that assignment. So in this case, we had said that the assignment was worth 100 points. We can add in 100 points. And then what the marking guide does that's superior to, I believe it's superior to the checklist, in that it allows you to assign any value between 0 and the maximum mark. Whereas in the checklist, it was just a check that it was on, that they did it or did not do it. And they would get all the points if it's checked and 0 of the points if it's not checked. So here you're allowed to be more granular in your assessment. So you can assign any value to the quality of the work rather than a set of points. And then the marking guide also provides a very useful tool to send feedback to the student based on frequently used comments. So it allows you to add in all of the comments that you might provide to a student for a particular set of work.
I can see writing instructors creating the
I've
nice
done
list.
that on my own,
Yeah,
you
but
know.
putting it in and just being
Yeah.
able to go, okay?
Right. So then,
That's what a comma splice is.
yeah, when you're grading it, right. So you're able to say, I see examples of comma splice in here. Look at these locations or something, and so you can just rather than having to type that out in each comment or cut and paste it from a master list, you just click a button and it adds it and sends it to the student as commentary. So frequently used comments are added here. You click to edit. Since Kate mentions comma splice errors, I'll use that as my comment. And you can add as many of these as you want. So so many faculty members keep lists of comments that they provided to students in the past, and then they pull from that list in order to the next time they teach the class. Well, wouldn't it be easier if you could just put all those comments right into your grade forms, and then you wouldn't even have to be looking on your master list for that comment. You'd already have it listed there in the set of available commentary for students. There's also a space for just comments that you're writing for that particular student that are extemporaneous. You just simply type in new comments for those students. So that's also allowed. So let's save that and make it ready. Let's leave this practice 1 assignment as the marking guide. And let's go in and create a new assignment for the rubric. And then we'll talk about some of the drawbacks of the various methods. Okay, so again, the checklist or the advanced grading methods are only available in the assignment tool. There has been some documentation that says these tools can be used in advanced forums. I've tried to set up these criteria within the advanced forum, and it does not work. So I believe they're still working on getting that figured out. So I believe eventually advanced forums will also have checklists, marking guides, and rubrics available to them, but currently they do not. So probably by the next version of Moodle, hopefully
it
by...
shows up on the list, but it doesn't actually function, is what you're
That's
telling
right.
me.
It allows you to create the criteria, but it doesn't display them for students or as part of the rating system.
Okay.
It doesn't allow you to actually select them.
Okay.
So I'm not sure why.
Okay, yeah, I've seen it, but I hadn't tried using it,
Right.
so that's
So
useful to know.
Right. So once it does work, we'll make sure that you're informed of that. All right. So let's create an assignment. We're going to add that. We'll call this practice 2 rubric. Again, you have all of your regular assignment settings, your subjective release dates, your, selective release dates, your other various settings about notifying students about submissions, feedback, comments, and so forth. And again, this is set in the grade section with the various advanced grading methods. You're not actually able to edit those methods until after you save and return into the assignment. So we're going to save and display this assignment, and we're going to create a new form from scratch. And we're just about wrapping up our half hour, so we'll go ahead and show you the basic tools. It's a very similar structure. The interface is structured very similarly to the other 2 tools. This one we'll call college level writing. A description. And in this one, you get the ability to add in your criteria. So we'll call this one college level writing. And here we get to add our criteria and assign points. So let's say our college level writing is the overall name of the rubric, and then you can add criterion for the college level writing. So let's call this one grammar. Let's add one for use of vocabulary. We'll add a criterion for organization. Now you can add your levels of performance to each of these different categories. So, so under grammar, you could say frequent incorrect usage. You might say occasional problems, and then
Sheer perfection.
perfection.
Wow.
And then you assign points. You can also add other levels of this. So use of vocabulary does not use, or let's see.
Yeah, it doesn't even use the terms.
Yeah, it does not use terms.
And then the next one would be uses terms incorrectly.
Uses.
At least they show up.
Okay.
Get 0 because
And this one is perfect.
yeah, perfect.
And then an organization. Disorganized.
I'm gonna give
Let's see. Organization. Adequate organization. And great job. All right. So, and you'll notice that you can also assign points for the different elements. Now, the rubrics are very unusual in that it only allows you to select the category and assign the number of points. So in that way, it's very much like a checklist. It's either an all or nothing for that performance level. Now, what the rubric does is it takes the values that you've assigned by clicking on the various cells within the table of the rubric, and then it multiplies that by the value of the total assignment. So in this case, it would take up the possible points, the range of possible points. In this case, since I have 0 categories, it adds up 0 as the lowest possible score, and in this case, it adds up 6 for the highest level scores. And and so then it takes a range of 1 to 6, and it would multiply your score by the total value, the maximum value of this assignment. So if it's worth 100 points and you get all 6, it would give you 100 points. But if you missed one, it would give you 5/6 of 100 as the result. Now, if rubrics are not set up with a 0 category, it takes the range and it does the math. So sometimes people find it very confusing how it's calculating the score, and that's one of the idiosyncrasies of the rubric, is that it's really kind of hard to figure out what it's doing, and it's really not very granular in the way that people generally want to use a rubric. So so I think if you have long lists of criteria, the rubric could work effectively. And you might have subtle differences between the levels in order to maximize the number of points that you're assigning. And in that case, I could see it working pretty well. But if you just have a few criteria, I think most faculty would find it inadequate for their grading needs.
Yeah, I've known a few people who used a rubric that just had a 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And if that's all you had, it would work, because pretty much that you're not going to have an interim or anything in between those.
Right.
But yeah, if you're taking 20 points and you're only going to have 4 categories, then you're losing the finesse.
That's right. You're losing the ability to, well, I would call it granularity,
Okay.
and the ability to select a range within a range of points to better match the value to the student quality of the student's work.
So Steve, it really sounds like you prefer the marking guide for what you've experienced.
Yeah, I think the marking guide is the tool that most faculty would find useful here. Unless you have a lot of criteria and a lot of different areas that you are going to create within here, or lots of levels, this would, I think, prove to be inadequate for most people's needs. Okay. So that's the basic tools. That's how to put the tools to use in your courses. Are there any questions about the tools?
No, it'd be good to see how they work.
Right. Okay. So let's go on then, and let's do some practice with these tools. So thank you for attending our session on Moodle assessment tools. Bye. See you later.
I'm Steve Bining.